So when we put this bike engine in, it's probably going to be pretty quick. The next part to look at is the underside, but we're no longer going to need this. But underneath is looking miles better. So welcome back to K & Build. If you're new here, this is Matt and I's Honda K truck, and we plan to be putting a Honda Fireblade moved bike engine in it, and we also plan to be putting this on some air suspension and get it sat on the floor. In the last two videos we removed the complete top of this bed to give us access to the underneath, removed a big chassis panel here similar to this one, we fixed a load of rust, but in today's video we carrying on fixing some rust, removing this factory rear axle and just generally fixing up the whole rear end of this truck with more welding and filling the gaps like the ones on the back. But firstly, let's get this rear axle off. There's just some bolts on the rear here and then some bolts on the front spring there, and then once they're off we can start to remove some more panels. So without further ado, let's get this rear axle off. So rear axle is now off. As I said, super easy, just pretty much 4 bolts and it comes off. This just goes to show how light these K trucks really are, because at the minute the front end of the truck is actually weighing the back end up in the air and it's not being kept up by anything as there's no support. As you can see, they just pretty much move freely. So when we put this bike engine in, it's probably going to be pretty quick because there's nothing to these trucks at all. One of our other sort of ideas or points really is, you would have seen in the previous video that Ken marked sort of the centre of the wheel. You won't be able to see it, but there's a mark on the frame here. The idea was to obviously put it in the same place. Now based on where the engine will be, drive shaft, etc., it'll be a case of whether we move it back. Now we can't really see any sort of reason why we can't do it, but if you can think of something, drop in the comments down below as to what difference that would make to us. If we drop it back 4 or 5 inches, can't really see there being a problem as long as we sort out the rest of the sort of centering. But drop in the comments whether you think that might be an issue. For those of you who are new, I'll show you what we've done so far to the rear end. So we have fixed a few pieces of rust. These are our repairs, the flat ones. As you can see here, this is a repair from the previous owner. It wasn't too bad, but we've added a few tack welds just to add some reinforcement. But there are some areas of rust we've still got to fix. There's one this side, and we also have some rust to fix on the other side. As you can see, the previous owner has done some sort of repair, but obviously they didn't have access to the inside like us, so we've got to fix that properly. There's a few other areas then we're going to have to attack on the top side, but the next part to look at is the underside. So there's a few areas we want to remove. This is the front support for the leaf spring, which attaches to the back, but we're no longer going to need this, so we'll spot weld this off and get this piece gone. And exactly the same the other side. There's also some pieces down here. This doesn't really do a lot for us, so this is going to go. We're going to do something with the pieces here. This is supporting up the edge, but we think we're going to cut this down and try and reinforce it in a way we can. And again, with the mud flaps, we're going to do something with them, but it's deciding what we do with this subframe yet. But first up, let's get rid of these pillars. So after hours and hours of work, we think we've removed everything off the bottom of this truck that we need to. The only thing left are the standard mud guards, but as we mentioned just now, we don't know what we're going to do in terms of the centre of the wheel yet, as we may drop it back a couple of inches. If we decide to keep it where it was, then we'll use the mud flaps, but if we decide to move the subframe back a bit, then we'll end up taking these off at a later date. But let me show you how it's looking so far. But underneath is looking miles better. As you can see, we've removed the strut that was sticking down there. We've replaced that there. That was in a previous video, so go and check that out. We've got a few holes to fill in. On the passenger side, we've removed the strut there as well. Again, we're going to have to fill these holes in, grind some of this down. This all here will be grinded down, but we're all going to do that once because we may chuck a sheet over the truck to stop some of the dust, as it is very dusty. We also removed this piece here, so we got to weld them spot welds back up, but it is looking a lot cleaner underneath. It might seem unnecessary moving some of this stuff, but trust me, trust the process. This is going to look a lot better when our vision or idea with the back of this truck comes to life, which we will show you in some later videos, so make sure you drop a subscribe to catch that. But for now, I'm going to crack on with some welding, grind some bits off, and just generally tidy this up. Again, a few hours of work, so you're going to see a couple of time lapses, but let's tidy up this rear end even more. There's loads of techniques you could use to repair rust, but this one seems to work best for us. We mark out the area and cut out the area we want to replace. We then use masking tape on the inside and draw on the panel that we want to replace to get a template. Once we've cut the metal, we simply trim it and file it down so it's exactly the same size as the piece we've cut out. We then tack weld multiple areas to try and get the piece as flush as possible to the existing panel. So hopefully that's the majority of this kind of welding done. All we've got to do now is all of the welding we've done, basically grind them off with a sanding disc on the angle grinder. We've got to put a light down on the other side, see if there's any holes in any of the welds, fill up any of the holes with a bit more welding. So we might have to weld a touch more, but the majority of it is finished. The inside of the chassis rails look a bit messy, but we're not too fussed. All we care about is the structural integrity of the chassis. We've also still got to fix the 2 patches of rust, but there's not a lot we can kind of show you too much. So again, we're just going to carry on. It's going to take a couple of hours work to get all this smoothed off a bit. Eventually then we're going to filler and sand the chassis rails as well. The inside rails are the ones that are more important to us. That will all make more sense later on, but for now let's get rid of all these ugly welds and try and clean it up a bit. So I finished a lot more welding. I don't know how much we've showed you just because it takes that long that sometimes we forget to record some things. So let me just give you a quick recap of where we are so far. So as you have previously seen, everything is removed off the chassis rails and they're all nice and clean. We've pretty much finished the 2 sections. As if you haven't seen, there used to be a strut across the middle here, which was very similar to that one, which we removed and cut out. It's not looking too bad. This one's looking a bit worse than the other one, but we will end up filling and sanding the chassis rails down, as these 2 pieces you will see the most. We've also filled in a couple of patches. I still have to sand these ones down yet, but they take so long. The next thing I think I'm going to attack is some of the pieces like this. There's some holes on the sides, but I think my plan is to get rid of these ones. So the plan with them, I think I'm going to file them into a square shape so it's easier for me to put a panel in. Same for this one, and then hopefully I can just fill this in with the welder. There's also a couple of holes across the top, one there which I want to fill in, and there's another one of them holes there, and just generally a few holes which I want to fill in and get rid of. So fixing these is very similar to the larger pieces. Just going to take the piece, use a magnet to hold it in place, hold it into the panel, and then basically go around each corner, making sure that all four sides are nice and flush to this panel so there's less work later on. You've also got to clean up the edges on here. I've cleaned up the edges on the little piece, but that's to give us a better weld, give us better penetration on the weld. I've cleaned it up a bit, but I did taps. There was like 2 indentations, so I've tapped them out, so I'll give them a sand off now. This also may need some trimming. It may not fit perfectly, but nothing that a little bit of filing can't sort out. Can either file this piece, see which way is easier, but let's just get all 4 of these pieces finished. That is 90% of the holes on the sides and on the edges of the bed done. As you can see, I've welded them up, but they do stick up a little bit. So what I got to do now is file them down by hand, or I'm going to use the angle grinder and a sanding disc to get rid of the majority of it. There's quite a few holes on the sides. There was some further down as well. These were like all little dents. We've kind of filled them in as well, but we've got to get them nice and flat. Chances are there's still going to be some bits we've got to fill in even more, but I'm going to get them as flat as I can for now and then see what happens. So that is it for today's video. There's still some little bits we have to do, but I'll do that just in a bit of downtime as it's taken us so long. The only bits we haven't managed to touch are the repairs that we need to do on the inside of the chassis rails, but there is a good reason for that, and that will be in a later video, and it will make more sense as to why we haven't repaired that yet. Overall, we've made so much progress so far. I can't wait to start putting things back on the truck and making it look like a truck again. The chassis rails are a lot cleaner, the chassis in general just looks a lot cleaner, and I can't wait to get all the rubbish off and protect this chassis for the years to come. If you want to see how we get on with the truck, then make sure you go and subscribe to our channel. Any feedback you can give, anything you see that we can do better, anything you think that might be easier for us to do on the truck, any suggestions on what we can do for the truck, then make sure to drop it down in a comment, as we're always reading the comments. We hope you enjoyed the video, but we will catch you in the next one.